The gunshot echoed across the empty plains as Zara Kelley clutched the telegram in her trembling hands, her world shattering like the parched earth beneath her feet. It was 1875 in Colfax, California, and in one cruel moment, she had become a widow with 5 children to feed and a struggling ranch to maintain on the unforgiving frontier. "Ma." 10-year-old Samuel's voice quivered as he approached, his younger siblings huddled behind him like frightened colts. "Is Pa really not coming home?" Zara wiped away the tears that had carved clean paths through the dust on her cheeks. Her husband of 12 years, Thomas Kelley, was dead killed in a stagecoach robbery while returning from Sacramento with supplies for their ranch. The life they'd built together, the dreams they'd nurtured since coming west from Missouri, now rested solely on her slender shoulders. "Your father." She swallowed hard, gathering her children close. "Your father has gone to heaven, but we must carry on. This is our home." That night, after tucking her exhausted children into bed, Samuel, 8-year-old twins Emma and Eliza, 5-year-old Jacob, and little 3-year-old Lily Zara sat alone at the kitchen table, the oil lamp casting long shadows across the rough-hewn walls of their modest ranch house. The cattle needed tending, the crops required harvesting, repairs awaited attention, and winter loomed on the horizon. How could one woman possibly manage it all? She buried her face in her hands and allowed herself one moment of despair before squaring her shoulders. "We will survive," she whispered to the empty room. "We must." The following days passed in a blur of exhaustion. Zara rose before dawn and collapsed into bed well after dark. She tried to maintain the ranch operations while caring for her children, but disaster seemed to lurk around every corner. 2 weeks after receiving the telegram, a violent summer storm swept through the valley. Zara fought against the howling wind to secure the barn doors as rain pounded mercilessly against her body. A sudden gust tore the heavy wooden door from her grasp, slamming it against her shoulder with enough force to send her sprawling into the mud. Lightning illuminated the night sky as she struggled to her feet, the pain shooting down her arm nearly unbearable. With gritted teeth, she managed to secure the barn, but by morning she could barely lift her arm. The cattle needed moving to higher pasture before the creek flooded, fences required mending, and the children needed feeding. Impossibly, more work piled up as her body began to fail her. Samuel tried his best to help, but he was still just a boy. The twins took on caring for their younger siblings, but it wasn't enough. 3 days after the storm, Zara stood in her kitchen, staring at their dwindling food supplies, wondering how they would make it through another week. A knock at the door startled her from her grim calculations. "Who could that be?" she muttered, wiping her hands on her apron before moving to answer it. The man standing on her porch was tall and weather-beaten, his broad shoulders blocking the afternoon sun. A worn Stetson cast shadows across eyes the color of the summer sky. Dust coated his denim pants and cotton shirt, speaking of long days on the trail. A gun belt hung low on his hips, not for show, but for necessity in these dangerous times. "Mrs. Kelley." His voice was deep, with the hint of a southern drawl. Zara positioned herself protectively in the doorway. "Who's asking?" "Name's Isaac Galloway. I rode with your husband during the war, heard about his passing when I came through town." He removed his hat, revealing dark hair streaked with premature silver at the temples. "I came to pay my respects." Zara studied him cautiously. Thomas had spoken of his war companions, but she'd never met any of them. "I don't recall my husband mentioning you." A ghost of a smile touched the stranger's lips. "He probably called me Hawk. That was my nickname back then." Recognition flickered across Zara's face. Thomas had indeed mentioned a hawk, a skilled sharpshooter who'd saved his life more than once during the conflict. "Please come in, Mr. Galloway." She stepped aside, wincing as the movement jostled her injured shoulder. Isaac's keen eyes missed nothing. "You're hurt." "It's nothing, just a run-in with a barn door during the storm." She tried to sound dismissive, but exhaustion crept into her voice. He followed her inside, where the children gathered curiously at the sight of the stranger. Samuel stepped protectively in front of his siblings, his young face solemn. "These are my children," Zara said. "Samuel, Emma, Eliza, Jacob, and Lily." Isaac nodded respectfully to each of them. "Pleased to meet you all." Over a simple meal of beans and cornbread, all Zara could manage to prepare Isaac told stories of their father during the war that made the children laugh for the first time since Thomas's death. As the evening wore on, Zara found herself studying their visitor. There was something solid about him, dependable in a way that reminded her of the mountains that rimmed the valley, weathered but unmoving. After the children were put to bed, Isaac joined Zara on the porch. The night was quiet except for the distant howling of coyotes and the soft creaking of the windmill. "Your place needs work," he said bluntly. Zara bristled. "I'm aware of that, Mr. Galloway. Didn't mean any offense," he said quickly. "Just stating facts. That north fence line won't hold through another storm, and your cattle need moving before the creek rises further. And I suppose you have a solution." Zara couldn't keep the edge from her voice. She was tired of feeling helpless, tired of knowing all that needed doing and being unable to do it. Isaac leaned against the porch railing, his expression thoughtful as he gazed out at the darkened ranch. "I do, actually. You need a partner, Mrs. Kelley, and I'm staying." Zara stared at him, certain she'd misheard. "I beg your pardon." "I owe Thomas my life," Isaac said simply. "3 times over, at least. I can't bring him back, but I can make sure his family doesn't lose everything he worked for." "You can't just decide to stay," Zara sputtered, though a treacherous spark of hope had ignited in her chest. "Why not?" "I've been drifting since the war ended, taking odd jobs, moving from town to town, nothing holding me anywhere." He turned to face her, his expression serious. "I'm good with cattle, decent with crops, and I can fix most anything that breaks. I'm offering you an extra pair of hands, nothing more." "And what do you expect in return?" Zara asked warily. She'd heard stories of widows being taken advantage of, losing their land to unscrupulous men who offered help with strings attached. "Room and board is all I ask. A fair share of the profits if the ranch starts turning them." He held her gaze steadily. "I'm not looking to take anything that isn't offered freely, Mrs. Kelley." Zara considered his words. She needed help desperately, but trusting a stranger went against everything her frontier life had taught her. Still, Thomas had trusted this man with his life during the war. Perhaps she could trust him with their livelihood. "1 month," she said finally. "We'll try it for 1 month. The bunkhouse is yours." Isaac nodded, replacing his hat. "I'll fetch my things from town tomorrow. Be back by noon to start on that fence." True to his word, Isaac returned the following day with his modest belongings: a bedroll, a change of clothes, a rifle in addition to his sidearm, and a toolbox that had seen better days. Without ceremony, he settled into the bunkhouse and immediately set to work on the north fence line. Zara watched from the kitchen window as he methodically replaced broken posts and tightened wire, his movements efficient and practiced. By sunset, the fence that had worried her for weeks was secure, and Isaac had moved on to repairing the leaking roof of the chicken coop. Over the next days, Isaac's presence began to reshape the rhythm of life on the ranch. He rose before dawn to tend to the livestock, moved the cattle to safer pasture ahead of the rising creek waters, and repaired everything from the broken wagon wheel to the stubborn water pump. He taught Samuel how to mend tack and set rabbit snares, skills the boy eagerly absorbed from this new male figure in his life. At first, Zara maintained a careful distance, watching Isaac interact with her children with a mixture of gratitude and apprehension. But as the days turned into weeks, the walls she'd built around her heart began to show hairline cracks. It was the little things that did it: the way he carved tiny wooden animals for little Lily, how he patiently braided Emma and Eliza's hair when Zara was too busy with chores, the hours he spent teaching Jacob to fish in the creek. More than once, she found herself pausing in her work just to observe the easy way he'd integrated himself into their lives, filling spaces she hadn't even realized were empty. One evening, a month after Isaac's arrival, Zara found him sitting on the porch steps, whittling a piece of wood by lantern light. "Your trial month is up, Mr. Galloway," she said softly, settling beside him. Isaac's hands stilled, but he didn't look up. "And the children would be heartbroken if you left now. And their mother." He finally raised his eyes to hers. Zara met his gaze steadily. "Their mother finds she's grown accustomed to having help around the place. A slow smile spread across Isaac's face, crinkling the corners of his eyes. "Then I reckon I'll stay a while longer, Mrs. Kelley." "Zara," she corrected him. "If you're staying, you might as well use my given name." "Zara," he repeated, as if testing the feel of it on his tongue. "It suits you, strong but beautiful too." A flush crept up her neck at the unexpected compliment. "Good night, Isaac." She rose quickly, retreating into the house before he could see the effect his words had on her. That night, lying in the bed she'd once shared with Thomas, Zara acknowledged the complicated emotions swirling within her. Gratitude for Isaac's help, certainly. Relief at no longer bearing the entire burden alone. But there was something else to a quickening of her pulse when he was near, a warmth that had nothing to do with the summer heat. It felt like betrayal to Thomas's memory, and yet. Life on the frontier was harsh. Practicality often trumped sentiment when survival was at stake. "What would you have me do, Thomas?" she whispered to the darkness. No answer came, but somewhere deep in her heart, she felt that her husband would have wanted her and the children to be safe, to be cared for even if that meant another man stepping into the role he could no longer fill. As summer gave way to autumn, the ranch began to thrive under their combined efforts. Isaac proved to be not just a hard worker but a skilled rancher with an intuitive understanding of the land. Under his guidance, they culled the weakest cattle before winter, preserved the abundant vegetable harvest from Zara's garden, and prepared the ranch buildings for the coming cold. The town of Colfax noticed the changes too. Where once there had been whispers of pity for the widow Kelley and her fatherless children, now there was speculation about the handsome cowboy who'd taken up residence at her ranch. Some gossip was inevitable, but Isaac's respectful behavior always sleeping in the bunkhouse, never presuming a familiarity he hadn't earned, gradually silenced the worst of it. On a crisp October day, Zara was surprised when Isaac hitched the wagon and suggested they all go into town. "The children could use some new winter clothes, and there's a harvest festival happening today," he explained. "Thought it might do everyone good to have a day of fun." The children greeted this news with excited cheers, and even Zara couldn't deny the appeal of a break from ranch work. They made the journey to Colfax with the children singing songs and pointing out wildlife along the way. The town was decorated with autumn colors, harvest wreaths adorning doors and pumpkins lining the boardwalk. A makeshift dance floor had been erected in the town square, and a three-piece band played lively tunes while couples twirled about. Isaac helped Zara down from the wagon with a gentle hand, his touch lingering perhaps a moment longer than strictly necessary. "I've put aside some money from odd jobs I've done for neighboring ranches," he told her. "Thought the young ones might like to pick out their own winter clothes and maybe a small treat." "Isaac, that's not necessary," Zara protested. "You've done so much already, please," he interrupted softly. "Let me do this for them." The sincere look in his eyes silenced her objections. They spent the afternoon moving between shops, the children wide-eyed at being allowed to select their own new items. Afterward, Isaac bought them each a stick of rock candy, earning him beaming smiles and sticky hugs of gratitude. As evening approached, the music in the square grew more spirited. Families gathered to dance, and Isaac turned to Zara with an outstretched hand. "May I have this dance, Zara?" She hesitated, suddenly aware of the eyes watching them. "I don't know if that would be proper. Just one dance," he coaxed, "for the sake of the festival." Against her better judgment, Zara placed her hand in his and allowed him to lead her to the dance floor. His hand at her waist was warm and steady as they moved to the fiddle's cheerful melody. For the first time in months, Zara felt like a woman rather than merely a widow and mother. The sensation was both thrilling and terrifying. "You're a fine dancer, Mrs. Kelley," Isaac said, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "As are you, Mr. Galloway," she replied, a smile tugging at her lips despite her efforts to remain composed. From the sidelines, her children watched with varying reactions, the twins giggling behind their hands, Samuel looking thoughtful, Jacob impatient for more candy, and little Lily clapping along to the music. The dance ended too quickly, and Zara stepped away, smoothing her skirts with suddenly nervous hands. The spell was broken by the arrival of Sheriff Porter, a portly man with a bristling mustache and suspicious eyes. "Mrs. Kelley," he greeted, tipping his hat before turning a harder gaze on Isaac. "Galloway, Sheriff," Isaac acknowledged with a respectful nod. "Heard you've taken up residence at the Kelley Ranch," the sheriff said, making the innocent statement sound vaguely accusatory. "Mr. Galloway has been kind enough to help with the ranch work," Zara said quickly. "He served with my late husband during the war." The sheriff's eyebrows rose. "Is that so? Strange, Thomas never mentioned you when he was in town." "We lost touch after the war," Isaac explained calmly. "I only learned of his passing when I came through Colfax." The sheriff clearly wasn't satisfied. "Where were you before arriving here, Galloway?" "Working cattle drives mostly. Laramie to Cheyenne last season. Before that, I was ranch handing down in Arizona territory." "Any reason you moved around so much?" Isaac's face remained impassive. "Just following the work, Sheriff." "Well," the lawman said, adjusting his gun belt, "I like to know who's staying in my jurisdiction. You keep your nose clean, you won't have any trouble from me." After the sheriff moved on, Zara gave Isaac a questioning look. "Is there something I should know about your past?" Isaac sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Nothing sinister, if that's what you're asking. I've never been on the wrong side of the law." He paused. "But I've had my share of troubles. The war, it changed me. Made it hard to settle anywhere for long." The vulnerable admission struck Zara deeply. She'd seen the same restlessness in Thomas when he'd first returned from the conflict, the nightmares that had plagued him, the way loud noises would startle him into combat readiness. "I understand," she said softly. "Thomas struggled too when he first came home." Isaac's eyes met hers, a flash of gratitude in their blue depths. "We should get the children home before it gets too late." The ride back to the ranch was quieter than the journey into town, the children drowsy from excitement and sugar. By the time they arrived, Lily and Jacob were fast asleep. Isaac carried them to their beds while Zara ushered the older children inside. Later, after the house had fallen silent, Zara stepped onto the porch to find Isaac standing in the yard, staring up at the star-filled sky. "Thank you for today," she said quietly, drawing his attention. "The children haven't had that much fun since." She trailed off, unable to finish the thought. Isaac nodded in understanding. "They're good kids. You've done well with them, Zara. Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing enough." The confession slipped out before she could stop it. "Thomas and I had such plans for them for this place. And then suddenly it was just me, trying not to let everything fall apart." "You're the strongest person I've ever met," Isaac said, his voice low and sincere. "Most would have given up, sold the ranch, moved back east, but you stayed and fought." His words warmed something within her that had been cold for too long. "Having you here, it's made a difference, not just with the work." Their eyes held in the moonlight, an unspoken current passing between them. For a breathless moment, Zara thought he might step closer, might bridge the careful distance they'd maintained. Instead, he cleared his throat and looked away. "We should both get some rest. Morning comes early." Zara nodded, ignoring the pang of disappointment that flickered through her. "Good night, Isaac." As she returned to her empty bedroom, Zara acknowledged that somewhere along the way, Isaac Galloway had become more than just a hired hand or her husband's former comrade. He had become essential not just to the ranch, but to her. The realization was as frightening as it was exhilarating. Winter descended on Colfax with unexpected ferocity that year. November brought freezing rain that coated everything in treacherous ice, followed by heavy snowfall that isolated the ranch for days at a time. Inside the snug ranch house, however, a different kind of warmth was growing. The long evenings were filled with stories around the hearth, Isaac teaching the boys to play checkers, and Zara showing the twins how to knit. Little Lily had taken to following Isaac everywhere, her small hand trustingly in his as he went about his chores. Even Samuel, initially the most reserved around their new ranch hand, now sought out Isaac's advice and approval. One particularly cold December evening, as a blizzard howled outside, Isaac entertained the children with tales of his travels throughout the West. His deep voice painted vivid pictures of towering mountains, vast deserts, and bustling frontier towns. The children listened, wide-eyed, as he described encounters with buffalo herds and Native American tribes. "Did you ever meet any real outlaws?" Samuel asked eagerly. Isaac's expression grew more serious. "I did, and let me tell you something important. There's nothing glamorous about men who take what isn't theirs or harm innocent people. A real man earns his way honestly and protects those who can't protect themselves." Zara looked up from her mending, struck by the conviction in his voice and the way Samuel nodded solemnly, absorbing the lesson. After the children were tucked in bed, Isaac lingered by the fire, staring into the flames with a distant expression. Zara brought him a cup of coffee and settled in the chair opposite him. "You're good with them," she observed quietly. "They adore you." Isaac's smile was tinged with something that might have been sadness. "They make it easy. Good kids tend to do that." "Have you ever thought about having a family of your own?" The question slipped out before she could consider its implications. His eyes met hers over the rim of his coffee cup. "There was a time when I couldn't imagine settling down. The war left me, unsettled, restless." He paused, his gaze returning to the fire. "But lately, I've been thinking it might not be so bad, putting down roots somewhere, having people who belong to you and you to them." The air between them seemed to thicken with unspoken possibilities. Zara found herself wondering what it would be like to truly share her life with this man, who had already become so integral to it. The moment was broken by a sudden gust of wind that rattled the windows and sent a shower of sparks up the chimney. "I should check on the livestock before turning in," Isaac said, rising to his feet. "Make sure everything's secure against this storm." "Be careful," Zara cautioned. "The temperature's dropping fast." He donned his heavy coat and hat, pausing at the door. "I won't be long, don't wait up." But Zara did wait, watching through frosted window panes as his lantern light bobbed between the barn and outbuildings. The blizzard intensified, snow swirling in dense white clouds that occasionally obscured him from view entirely. Relief flooded through her when he finally returned, stamping snow from his boots on the porch. "Everything all right?" she asked as he hung his frost-covered coat by the door. "The barn roof is holding, and all the animals are accounted for." He rubbed his hands together, his face reddened from the cold. "But this is shaping up to be the worst storm I've seen in these parts." Zara nodded, familiar with the unpredictable mountain weather. "At least we're well provisioned. The children won't go hungry, even if we're snowed in for a while." "You're always thinking of them first," Isaac observed, his voice soft with admiration. "They're all I have," she replied simply. Isaac took a step closer, his expression suddenly intense. "You have more than that, Zara. You have this land, you have your strength, and—" He hesitated, then continued more quietly, "You have me, for whatever that's worth." Zara's heart hammered against her ribs. "And what exactly are you offering, Isaac Galloway?" For a long moment he simply looked at her, the firelight casting shadows across his features. Then slowly, deliberately, he closed the distance between them and took her hand in his. "Everything," he said. "Everything I am, everything I have. It's not much just my hands, my heart, my word, but it's yours if you want it." Zara's breath caught in her throat. In his eyes she saw not just desire, but something deeper: respect, admiration, and yes, love. Love for her children, love for her. "I don't know if I'm ready," she whispered truthfully. "Thomas has only been gone, I know," Isaac interrupted gently. "I'm not asking for an answer tonight. I'm just letting you know where I stand, where I hope to stand someday if you'll have me." Before she could respond, he raised her hand to his lips and pressed a tender kiss to her knuckles. "Good night, Zara." She watched him walk out into the cold night, heading for the bunkhouse, her hand still warm where his lips had touched. That night, sleep eluded her as she grappled with conflicting emotions. Thomas had been her first love, the father of her children, her partner in building this life. His memory deserved honor, and yet life moved forward relentlessly. The ranch needed a man's strength, the children needed a father figure, and she needed companionship, support, and yes, perhaps even love again. The blizzard raged for 3 days, effectively cutting off the ranch from town. When it finally subsided, the world outside was transformed into a glittering white expanse, beautiful but dangerous. Isaac spent long hours clearing paths between buildings and breaking ice in the water troughs for the livestock. One afternoon, as Zara was preparing supper, frantic knocking at the door startled her. She opened it to find Mrs. Peterson, their nearest neighbor from 5 miles down the valley road, her face streaked with tears beneath her snow-crusted bonnet. "Zara, thank God," the older woman gasped. "It's John. He went out to check the herd this morning and hasn't returned. I'm afraid he's lost in the snow. Our boy's out searching now, but he's just 16. Come in, Meredith." Zara ushered the distressed woman inside. "Isaac will help. He knows these lands better than anyone." When informed of the situation, Isaac immediately began preparing for a search. He donned his warmest clothes, packed emergency supplies, and gave Zara a serious look. "If I'm not back by nightfall, don't come looking. Get word to the sheriff somehow." "You be careful," Zara said, unable to mask the worry in her voice. "We need you here." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "I'll remember that." The hours of his absence stretched interminably. Zara kept Mrs. Peterson company, made tea, and prayed silently as the short winter day began to wane. Just as dusk was gathering, barking dogs announced riders approaching. Zara rushed to the door to see Isaac supporting John Peterson in his saddle. The rancher was pale and barely conscious, his left leg awkwardly splinted with tree branches. "Found him trapped under his horse in Miller's Ravine," Isaac explained as they carefully moved the injured man inside. "Broke his leg in the fall. Good thing his horse stayed with him, or I might never have spotted them in that snow." Mrs. Peterson wept with relief as they settled her husband by the fire. "How can we ever repay you?" Isaac shook his head. "No need, it's what neighbors do." Later that night, after Dr. Collins had been fetched from town to properly set John's leg, and the Petersons were settled in the spare room, Zara found Isaac sitting alone on the porch despite the biting cold. "You could have died out there today," she said, wrapping her shawl tighter around her shoulders. "But I didn't." He looked up at her, his expression unreadable in the dim light. "You risked your life for a man you barely know." "It was the right thing to do." Zara moved to sit beside him on the porch step, their shoulders nearly touching. "When Thomas died, I thought I'd never feel safe again. I thought I'd have to be strong every minute of every day for the rest of my life." She turned to face him fully. "But since you came, I've remembered what it's like to share the burden, to trust someone else to be there when needed." Isaac remained silent, listening intently. "I'm not ready to replace Thomas," she continued carefully. "I don't think I ever will be, but I am ready to make room in my life, in our lives, for someone new, someone who has earned his place through actions rather than words." Hope dawned in Isaac's eyes. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" "I'm saying," Zara took a deep breath, "that if your offer still stands, I'd like to accept it. Not right away, we should take our time for the children's sake. But yes, eventually, I think I would like to build something permanent with you, Isaac Galloway." The smile that transformed his face was like sunrise breaking over the mountains. Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, he leaned forward and pressed his lips to hers in a gentle, questioning kiss. Zara's heart, so carefully guarded for so long, seemed to unfurl like a flower reaching for the sun. When they parted, both slightly breathless, Isaac rested his forehead against hers. "I promise you won't regret this," he murmured. "I'll spend every day proving worthy of the trust you're placing in me." "I know you will," she replied softly. "That's why I can take this chance." Over the following months, their relationship evolved with careful deliberation. Isaac remained in the bunkhouse, maintaining propriety for the sake of the children and the town's gossips. But the subtle changes in their interactions, lingering glances, casual touches, shared smiles didn't go unnoticed by the more perceptive members of the household. One spring morning, as Zara and Isaac worked side by side in the vegetable garden, Samuel approached with an unusually serious expression for a boy of 11. "Mr. Galloway, can I talk to you?" he asked, his voice wavering slightly. Isaac straightened, wiping soil from his hands. "Of course, Sam. What's on your mind?" The boy glanced at his mother, then back to Isaac. "Alone, if that's all right," Zara nodded encouragingly, though curiosity and concern bubbled within her. She watched as Isaac and her eldest son walked toward the creek, their heads bent in conversation. Nearly half an hour passed before they returned, both looking solemn but somehow lighter. Samuel gave his mother a quick hug before running off to join his siblings, leaving Zara to look questioningly at Isaac. "He wanted to know my intentions," Isaac explained, a note of wonder in his voice. "Said he's noticed how I look at you and wanted to make sure I wasn't planning to love him and leave him like some cowboys do." "He said that?" Zara asked, astonished, his exact words. Isaac's expression softened. "He also said that while I could never replace his father, he thinks Thomas would approve of me looking after his family." Tears sprang to Zara's eyes. "And what did you tell him?" "The truth. That I love his mother and intend to ask her to marry me when the time is right. That I will always honor his father's memory. That I don't want to replace anyone, just add my strength to this family." Isaac reached for her hand. "I hope that was all right." Zara squeezed his fingers tightly. It was perfect. As spring blossomed into summer, the ranch flourished under their combined care. The cattle herd increased, the crops thrived, and for the first time since Thomas's death, Zara found herself thinking of the future with hope rather than dread. It was on a warm July evening, exactly 1 year after Isaac had first appeared on her doorstep, that he asked her to walk with him to the hilltop overlooking the ranch. The sunset painted the valley in gold and crimson as they stood together, surveying all they had built and maintained. "Look at what you've accomplished," Isaac said, his arm around her waist. "A year ago, this place was barely hanging on, now it's thriving." "What we've accomplished," Zara corrected him. "I couldn't have done it without you. You would have found a way," he insisted. "You're the strongest person I know, Zara Kelley." She turned in his arms to face him fully. "Perhaps, but I'm glad I didn't have to." Isaac took a deep breath, his eyes serious. "I've been thinking about what you said about taking our time. It's been a year now, and every day I've grown more certain that this is where I belong, with you, with the children." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small wooden box. "I've been saving and planning for months." Zara's heart quickened as he opened the box to reveal a simple gold band set with a small sapphire. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "It reminded me of your eyes," Isaac said, suddenly looking boyishly nervous. "Zara Kelley, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife? Let me be a father to your children, a partner in your work, and a companion for all your days to come." Tears blurred her vision as she nodded. "Yes," she managed. "Yes, I will marry you, Isaac Galloway." His smile was radiant as he slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her close for a kiss that promised a lifetime of love and partnership. The wedding took place in September, a small but joyful affair attended by neighbors and friends from Colfax. The children participated enthusiastically, Samuel standing proudly as his mother's escort, the twins scattering wildflowers, Jacob carrying the rings, and Lily serving as a miniature bridesmaid, beaming with importance. Reverend Collins officiated, speaking eloquently about second chances and the blessings that could arise from tragedy. "The Lord works in mysterious ways," he concluded. "Sometimes the greatest gifts come disguised as our darkest moments." As Isaac and Zara exchanged vows beneath an arch of autumn foliage, she felt Thomas's presence not as a shadow over their happiness, but as a benevolent witness, approving of the man who would care for his family now that he could not. That evening, after a celebration feast and dancing in the barn, the children were tucked into bed by Mrs. Peterson, who had volunteered to stay with them while the newlyweds spent 2 nights at the hotel in Colfax, a wedding gift from the townspeople. As they prepared to leave, Samuel approached with a small package wrapped in brown paper. "This is from all of us," he said, handing it to Isaac and Zara. "We've been working on it for months." Inside was a family portrait drawn with remarkable skill by Emma, who had always shown artistic talent. It showed all 7 of them standing before the ranch house, Zara and Isaac in the center with the children arranged around them. At the bottom, each child had signed their name. "So you don't forget us while you're gone," Lily explained seriously. Zara knelt to gather her youngest in a fierce hug. "As if we ever could, we'll be back before you know it. And we'll be a real family then," Jacob added, "with a ma and a pa again." Isaac ruffled the boy's hair, his voice slightly husky with emotion. "We already are a family, son. The paper just makes it official." On their wedding night, in the privacy of the hotel room adorned with fresh flowers by the proprietor's wife, Isaac and Zara finally gave full expression to the love that had been building between them for months. Their coming together was tender yet passionate, a perfect blend of reverence and desire. Afterward, as moonlight spilled through the curtains and Zara lay contentedly in her new husband's arms, she marveled at life's unexpected turns. "A year ago I thought my life was over," she murmured against his chest. "I couldn't see a way forward." Isaac stroked her hair, his touch gentle, and now she propped herself up to look into his eyes. "Now I see endless possibilities, for us, for the children, for the ranch. I see a future worth fighting for. That's all I want," Isaac said, drawing her close again. "A chance to build that future with you one day at a time." When they returned to the ranch 2 days later, they were greeted by eager children and a home that somehow felt different, more complete, with Isaac officially moved from the bunkhouse to the main house. That night, they gathered around the dinner table as a unified family for the first time, Isaac at the head where Thomas had once sat, but bringing his own strength and character to the role. As fall gave way to winter, the Galloway Ranch, as it was now known in town, though Zara and Isaac never formally changed the name, became known as one of the most prosperous in the valley. Isaac's knowledge of cattle breeding improved their herd, while Zara's skilled management of household and finances kept everything running smoothly. The following spring brought new beginnings in more ways than one. On a mild April morning, as the first wildflowers were beginning to dot the meadows, Zara confirmed what she had suspected for several weeks: she was expecting a child. When she shared the news with Isaac, his joy was boundless. He lifted her off her feet in an exuberant embrace, his laughter mingling with hers in the bright morning air. "Are you happy?" he asked, setting her gently back on her feet, his hands still spanning her waist. "Beyond words," she assured him. "Though I worry about starting over with a baby at my age." "You're only 32, he reminded her with a smile. "And this time you won't be doing it alone." Telling the children proved to be a more complex emotional journey. While Emma, Eliza, and Jacob responded with excitement at the prospect of a new sibling, Samuel and Lily showed more reserved reactions. "Will the baby have your name?" Samuel asked that evening as they sat on the porch steps, the boy having sought out a private moment with his mother. "Yes," Zara answered honestly. "The baby will be a Galloway." Samuel nodded thoughtfully. "But we'll still be Kellys." "You will always be your father's children," Zara affirmed, understanding the root of his concern. "Nothing can ever change that." "But you're also part of this family, our family with Isaac. He said I could call him Pa if I wanted to," Samuel confided, "but that I didn't have to if it didn't feel right." Zara's heart swelled with love for her husband's sensitivity. "And what do you think about that?" The boy was quiet for a long moment. I think Pa would understand if I did. He'd want me to have someone to talk to about man things." "I think so too," Zara said softly, putting an arm around her son's shoulders, marveling at how tall he was growing. Little Lily's concerns were more straightforward. "But I'm the baby," she protested when told of the coming addition to the family. Isaac knelt before the pouting 4-year-old. "You'll always be our special Lily," he assured her. "But just think, you'll be a big sister now." "That's a very important job. More important than being the baby?" she asked skeptically. "Much more," Isaac confirmed solemnly. "The new baby will need you to show them all the important things, like where the best flower patches are and how to make Mama smile when she's tired." Lily considered this carefully before nodding. "I guess I could do that." As Zara's pregnancy progressed, the family settled into new rhythms. Isaac took on more of the physical labor, while Samuel stepped up to help with increasing responsibility. The twins, now 9, became more involved in household tasks, proudly learning to cook simple meals under Zara's guidance. Even 6-year-old Jacob contributed by taking over egg collecting and helping to tend the kitchen garden. The community rallied around them as well. Mrs. Peterson organized the women of Colfax to prepare meals for when the baby arrived. The blacksmith's wife, a skilled midwife, visited regularly to check on Zara's progress. Sheriff Porter, who had eventually warmed to Isaac after witnessing his commitment to the family and community, made a point of stopping by whenever he patrolled that section of the valley. In late November, as the first snow dusted the mountain peaks, Zara went into labor. The midwife was summoned, and Isaac was banished to the kitchen with the children, where they waited anxiously through the long hours. "Is Mama going to be all right?" Emma asked, her small face pinched with worry as another cry echoed from the bedroom. Isaac gathered the child onto his lap, though at 9 she was almost too big for such treatment. "Your Mama is the strongest woman I've ever known," he assured her. "She brought each of you into the world safely, and she'll do the same with this baby." Just before dawn, a lusty newborn cry penetrated the tense silence. The midwife appeared in the kitchen doorway, her tired face wreathed in smiles. "You have a son, Mr. Galloway," she announced. "A fine, healthy boy. Your wife is asking for you." Isaac rose on shaky legs. "The children." "Give their mother a few minutes with you first," the midwife advised. "Then they can come in to meet their new brother." When Isaac entered the bedroom, the sight that greeted him stole his breath away. Zara sat propped against pillows, her face radiant despite the exhaustion evident in her features, a small bundle cradled in her arms. "Come meet your son," she said softly. Isaac approached the bed with reverent steps, sinking down beside his wife. She folded back the blanket to reveal a tiny face, eyes scrunched closed, a shock of dark hair plastered to his head. "He's perfect," Isaac whispered, reaching out to touch one miniature fist. The baby's fingers uncurled and wrapped instinctively around his father's thumb, and Isaac felt his heart expand with a love so profound it was almost painful. "What shall we call him?" Zara asked. Isaac met her gaze, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "I was thinking maybe Thomas for his middle name, to honor the man who brought us together in a way." Zara's eyes welled up. "Thomas would like that, and for his first name," after a moment's consideration, Isaac suggested, "Matthew, it means gift from God." "Matthew Thomas Galloway," Zara tested the name. "It's perfect." When the children were allowed in to meet their new brother, they approached the bed with unusual quietness, their expressions a mixture of awe and curiosity. "He's so tiny," Jacob marveled. "You were even smaller," Zara told him with a smile. Lily climbed carefully onto the bed for a closer look. "His face is all red and squishy." "That's because being born is hard work," Isaac explained, lifting her onto his lap where she could see better. "He'll look different in a few days." Samuel hung back, watching thoughtfully until Zara beckoned him closer. "Would you like to hold him?" she asked her oldest son. The boy's eyes widened. "Could I, of course. Come sit here beside me and I'll show you how to support his head." With great care, Samuel accepted the bundled infant, his expression transforming from uncertainty to wonder as baby Matthew yawned and settled contentedly in his arms. "Hello, little brother," he whispered. "I'm Samuel. I'm going to teach you everything I know." In that moment, looking around at her expanded family, her 5 Kelley children and her Galloway husband and son Zara felt a sense of completion. The circle had widened to include new love, but the original bonds remained unbroken. As winter settled over the valley, the Galloway Kelley household adjusted to life with a newborn. Midnight feedings and diaper changes disrupted sleep patterns, but the joy that Matthew brought far outweighed the challenges. The older children adored their little brother, competing for opportunities to help care for him. Even Samuel, on the cusp of adolescence, showed remarkable patience with the baby, often volunteering to rock him when he was fussy. Christmas that year was especially meaningful. Isaac surprised the family by bringing home a tall pine tree, which they decorated with paper chains made by the children, strings of dried berries, and candles in special holders. Presents were simple but thoughtful hand-carved toys for the younger children, a journal for Samuel, new hair ribbons for the twins, and a locket for Zara containing a tiny family portrait on one side and a lock of Matthew's hair on the other. "This is the best Christmas ever," Lily declared as they sat around the fire after dinner, the baby sleeping peacefully in his cradle nearby. "Why is that, sweet pea?" Isaac asked, his arm around Zara's shoulders. "Because we're all together," the child explained simply, "like a real family." Isaac's eyes met Zara's over the little girl's head. "That's exactly what we are," he agreed. A real family. As the years passed, the ranch continued to prosper. The herd doubled in size, and with careful management and some strategic land purchases, the Galloway Ranch became one of the most respected in the region. Isaac's reputation as a fair businessman and skilled cattleman grew, while Zara became known for her excellent horsemanship and shrewd trading. The children thrived as well. Samuel, growing into a thoughtful young man with his father's height and his mother's steady temperament, showed a natural aptitude for ranching. By 16, he was helping Isaac manage significant aspects of the operation, proudly riding alongside the ranch hands during roundup. Emma and Eliza, though identical in appearance, developed different interests. Emma's artistic talents led her toward painting and design, her sketches of ranch life earning praise from visitors. Eliza discovered a love for books and learning, devouring every volume she could find and dreaming of becoming a teacher. Jacob grew into a cheerful boy with a knack for working with horses, spending every spare moment in the stables. Lily, no longer the baby but taking her role as big sister seriously, developed a nurturing nature that extended to injured animals, lost calves, and of course, her little brother Matthew. And Matthew, with his father's blue eyes and his mother's determined spirit, grew into a sturdy toddler and then an energetic boy, adored by his older siblings and the absolute apple of his parents' eyes. When Matthew was 3, Zara gave birth to a daughter they named Sarah Grace. The little girl had her father's dark hair but her mother's delicate features, and from her earliest days showed a sweet disposition that endeared her to everyone. By 1885, a full decade after Isaac had first appeared on Zara's doorstep, the Galloway Ranch had become not just a successful business but a true home, a place of love, hard work, and family bonds that transcended blood ties. On the 10th anniversary of their meeting, Isaac surprised Zara by taking her on a picnic to the hilltop where he had proposed. Now in her early 40s, Zara remained as beautiful to him as she had been that first day, perhaps more so for the life they had built together. "Do you ever think about how different things might have been?" he asked as they sat together on a blanket, watching the ranch activities below, Samuel directing the hands and moving cattle, the twins hanging laundry while supervising Jacob, Lily, and Matthew playing a game near the house, little Sarah toddling after them. "If you hadn't come." Zara considered the question. "Sometimes I might have lost the ranch or struggled along somehow. The children would have grown up differently." She leaned against his shoulder. "But I try not to dwell on might have beens." Isaac nodded, his arm tightening around her waist. "I rode into Colfax that day with no particular destination in mind, just another town on an endless road. When I heard about Thomas, I almost didn't come out here, thought it might be intruding." "What made you decide to come?" "Something I can't quite explain," he admitted. "A feeling that I needed to pay my respects, to see that his family was all right. The moment I saw you standing in that doorway, fierce and proud, despite everything you were facing, I knew I couldn't just ride away." "And when exactly did you decide you were staying?" Zara asked with a smile, recalling his bold declaration that first evening. Isaac chuckled. "The second I saw that north fence line, knew it wouldn't last the next storm and that you had no business trying to fix it yourself with an injured shoulder." "So it was the fence that won your heart, not me?" she teased. "The fence got me to stay," he corrected, turning to face her fully. "You got me to belong. For the first time since before the war, I felt like I had found my place in the world." Zara reached up to touch his face, her fingers tracing the lines that 10 years of sun and smiles had etched around his eyes. "I'm glad you found it here, with us." "Best decision I ever made," Isaac murmured, leaning down to kiss her. "You need a partner, I'm staying." And staying," Zara added with a soft laugh when they parted. "Thank God for that." As the sun began its descent toward the western mountains, painting the valley in golden light, they gathered their picnic things and started back down the hill toward home, toward the family that had been forged not just from blood and birth, but from choice and love and the courage to begin again. The ranch house glowed like a beacon in the gathering dusk, windows bright with lamplight, smoke curling from the chimney. From inside came the sounds of children's laughter, of life being lived fully and joyfully. It was everything Zara had feared losing when Thomas died, everything she had fought to preserve through those dark days of struggling alone. And it was everything Isaac had never known he wanted until he found himself part of this family, this remarkable blend of the past and present that now looked toward a shared future with hope and confidence. As they reached the porch, Samuel opened the door, Matthew riding on his shoulders, the other children clustering behind them. "We were about to send out a search party," the young man said with a grin. "Sarah's been asking for her mama, and Jacob's story about the three-legged coyote wasn't cutting it as a distraction." Isaac lifted his youngest child into his arms as she toddled forward with outstretched hands. "Were you missing us, little one?" he asked, pressing a kiss to her dark curls. "Papa home," she declared with satisfaction, patting his cheeks with small hands. "Yes, Papa's home," Zara echoed, her heart full as she looked around at the family they had built together. "We both are. Home, such a simple word for such a profound concept, not just a place but a feeling. Not just shelter but belonging. The ranch house that had once seemed too empty, too full of ghosts and painful memories, was now overflowing with life and love." As they all moved inside together, Isaac still carrying Sarah, Lily taking Zara's hand, the twins arguing good-naturedly about whose turn it was to set the table, Jacob recounting his adventures with the horses that day, Samuel and Matthew bringing up the rear. Zara knew with absolute certainty that sometimes life's greatest blessings arrived in the most unexpected ways. Sometimes they rode up on dusty horses, offering help when it was most desperately needed. Sometimes they stayed, not out of obligation but out of choice. And sometimes, if you were brave enough to open your heart again after loss, they became the foundation upon which you built a new kind of happiness different from what came before, but no less precious for being unplanned. The door closed behind them, enclosing the family in warmth and light as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky over Colfax Valley. Outside, the land waited for tomorrow's work. Inside, love flourished in a home where a widow's grief had transformed into a family's joy, all because one day, a cowboy had shown up and decided to stay.